Please remember that with your deportment this morning. This is really an honor, both for the St. Louis community and the St. Louis Science Center, to host NASA's Future Forum. I think it's very appropriate that when NASA thought about how do we celebrate our 50th birthday, it wasn't about an internal blowing out candles on a birthday cake. It was about engaging the nation in a conversation about science and technology and where we go in the future. We are one of 7 sites around the country privileged to host a Future Forum. I hope you'll agree with me at the end of the day that this dialogue is incredibly valuable to us, both as a science education institute and as citizens of our country. You know, it is those of us that are voters and citizens that make the decisions about where our country goes in a variety of areas, particularly in the sciences. It's driven by the incredible research and hard work of scientists and engineers and technicians, but the decisions about funding, the decisions about priorities are ours. And so listening to the speakers today, talking about discoveries, opportunities, explorations, inspirations that lie ahead is an incredibly valuable thing to be doing, and we really appreciate all of you joining us to do that today. You know, I was thinking last night about 50 years. 50 years seems like a long time. And then I was thinking, it scared me a little bit how well I remembered 50 years ago. And standing literally in my backyard, watching that light go across the sky and being stunned that humans could put a new star in the heavens. Now, that's sort of the way I understood it at that age, but learning about it in the following years changed my life and, of course, the lives of an entire generation. Those of you that are too young to remember 50 years ago, I recommend a great movie called October Sky. The life story, a true story of a person who went on to be a rocket scientist, in fact, to be a NASA employee, Homer Hickam, from the coal fields of West Virginia. But his story really describes what the country was like, what the attitude was like, and what the world was like in those days. And it's important to remember back, I think, to that time. We were only 50 years at that time removed from the first flight at all. The Wright brothers in 1903, it was barely more than 50 years later. And here we are now, 50 years in the future, another milestone. And so it is important to think about what we've accomplished, and more importantly, where we'll go from here. I think one of the highest compliments we can pay to NASA and to all of those of you who have worked in this field is that, in a positive sense, these wonders have become almost routine. I thought it was incredible as I was driving to work this morning and hearing the reports on Endeavour leaving the space station, heading home tomorrow, that we just had an incredibly complex 12-day mission with 5 spacewalks to this 500-ton science laboratory circling overhead that now is a beacon in the sky compared to that little dot that I watched 50 years ago. And more or less, we sort of take that for granted. I know that it's an incredible effort, an incredible achievement in science and technology to do that and to make it routine. But that's where we are today, the second time in a month, really, that we've been there, leaving behind more science research capabilities. I think it's incredible that there is an international fleet of exploration exploring our solar system at this moment. We visited every planet but Pluto, and we're on the way there. We know so much more than we did 50 years ago about the local neighborhood, and that there is an international fleet of great space telescopes helping us understand the rest of our universe, pushing back the edges of knowledge, and in fact gathering incredible public sympathy and interest. Those pictures from the Hubble, who cannot be inspired and excited? Who would have thought that a great scientific instrument could become sort of a public icon, that the public wants to save the Hubble, public wants to go back for another servicing mission and extend its life? Not just the scientists, but the public understand how valuable that research is. That we've made flying routine. The other A in NASA, that the first A, as they like to say, in aviation, that we can go out to the airport and most days go pretty routinely, or that we expect flights to happen to get to our destination and to have essentially zero tolerance for failure. Very different than 50 years ago. That we have an entrepreneurial culture beginning to explore not just aviation, but space. I was at a symposium in New Mexico not long ago, space entrepreneurs, that felt more to me like Silicon Valley in the late 1970s, when there were a bunch of sort of wild-eyed entrepreneurs talking about something called personal computers. Nobody had ever thought of the word internet then, but if you go to a space entrepreneurial seminar these days, you'll hear about a lot of ideas that won't happen, but you'll hear about a lot that will, and the future will be very different. And finally, bringing it down to its most simplistic, the fact that we were asked by Bob Hopkins here at the beginning to turn off our cell phones and our communication devices to pretty much let us talk to anybody in the world anytime we want and access any bit of information, of course, is a byproduct of all this science and technology that most people don't even think about anymore. In 1957 and 1958, there had never been a live television broadcast from Europe. And now, of course, we can talk to or see anything anywhere in the world anytime we want because of the good, solid technology built over the years by space exploration. So it's an honor to have people gathered in this room that have made that happen. We literally have people here who helped build the Mercury and Gemini capsules here in St. Louis in the earliest days of NASA, and we honor their achievements. We have people here from Washington University who are extending those frontiers of knowledge daily as we speak on the sands of Mars and in astrophysics and so many other fields. We have people here from Parks College and from Boeing pushing the edges of flight in the atmosphere, developing great new jobs and great futures for young people today and for all of us as consumers of those services. We have people in the room who made the X Prize happen, the entrepreneurial part of space, the new spirit of St. Louis, which caused that $10 million prize to come into existence and the first privately funded space flight to happen in 2004. And finally, we have a lot of educators in the room, people who have inspired young people using space for years and understand the value of educating, inspiring that next generation of explorers. And so all of us come together today to honor that past, but more importantly, to focus on the future. Where do we go from here? I'm not going to speculate on the next 50 years, on 2058. I think that's way too dangerous with many of you in the room. I hearken to my friend Barb Morgan, the educator astronaut, who was fond of saying at presentations to teachers, you know, the first Martians are sitting in your classrooms today. And I saw Barb the other day after her flight, and she said, you know, Doug, they're in college now. And I think some of them may already be working for NASA. I said, who are you talking about? She said, the Martians. So it's out there. It's right around the corner. We don't know exactly a timetable, but the fact that the fruition of a lot of dreams and opportunities is coming in the next few years is obvious. Where we'll be by 2058 is probably up to symposiums like this and a community decision at the national level in the coming years. I will speculate, though, just for a minute, because it's easier the farther you go, on 3058, 1,050 years from now. And the reason I think it's important to do that is to put all this in perspective. When historians write the story of our era 1,000 years from now, what will they talk about? It probably won't be the things that consume our everyday lives. They probably won't even talk a lot about who wins the election or whether Britney Spears is in rehab or the myriad of details, even important issues that we're talking about today. But they will write about this was the era when humans first left the planet. It's an incredible moment in history that we all get to participate in. Thank you for being here today to help us think about that future. Now, like so many such journeys, this begins with a little bit of logistics. We will be in this room this morning for the symposium. We'll take a break about 10:30, during which there are restrooms to your right as you leave this room, and also larger and more restrooms upstairs near the gift shop. At lunchtime, we'll walk across the bridge over to the James S. McDonald Planetarium, where the Science Center started in the early 1960s as a legacy of the inspiration that I talked about. And along your way, we hope you won't dawdle too much to look at the incredible exhibits along the way. But when you get in the tunnel over there and see the X Prize exhibit and you get to the Gemini capsule and you're looking at some of the history and some of the current exhibits on living and working in space upstairs, we hope you will spend some time on the way back from the planetarium. We hope you'll visit our mission control, where we teach young people to fly, inspire them about careers in aviation and space. You'll also encounter exhibits throughout the building provided by the NASA education folks as part of the 50th anniversary, particularly straight upstairs. Don't miss an incredible set of exhibits that they've brought and are sharing with the St. Louis community all this week during spring break week. We really appreciate that. And all day today there'll be all week there'll be educational programs going on for students and for teachers in professional development. We really appreciate NASA's education department, both at headquarters and in our direct support folks from the Marshall Space Flight Center in Huntsville. We really appreciate your help in presenting a great week to the St. Louis community. After lunch, or at lunch, Lieutenant Governor Peter Kinder will speak, and then after lunch we'll have a presentation on the history of spaceflight in St. Louis for those of you who can stay. And we welcome you to explore the building, life sciences, emerging technologies, and environmental sciences throughout the day or anytime. We thank you all for coming. Now, to begin this morning, our mayor and county executive both wanted to be here very badly. They are on a trip to China, promoting our community there, and so they are represented this morning. They are great supporters of the work of all of you in this community. They're represented this morning by Mr. Jim Sonderman, Special Assistant to Mayor Francis Slay, and by Ms. Miranda Duncan, Special Assistant to County Executive Charlie Dooley. Would you like to come up and present Ms. Dale with the little gift?
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of Mayor Francis Slay and the City of St. Louis, it's certainly an honor and a pleasure to be here to present this proclamation this morning. On behalf of the City of St. Louis, I'd like to say that it's certainly an honor for the city to be chosen as a venue for this historic day, and we're very proud of the many great things that are happening in our City of St. Louis, and we're very proud of the partnership that the St. Louis Science Center has provided to the city and their role in educating young people and the people of our city and creating a vision for the future as well. So with that, I would like to take a second here to read the proclamation. Whereas since its inception in 1958, National Aeronautics and Space Administration, NASA, has accomplished many great scientific and technological feats in air and space. And whereas NASA is a leading force in science research and in stimulating public interest in aerospace exploration, as well as science and technology in general. And whereas exploration of space has taught us to view Earth, ourselves, and the universe in a new way. And whereas NASA has chosen the City of St. Louis as one venue in which to celebrate its 50th anniversary at the St. Louis Science Center. And whereas the City of St. Louis congratulates NASA on 50 years of space exploration, scientific discovery, and research, and extends best wishes for continued success in the years ahead. Now there, I, Francis G. Slay, Mayor of the City of St. Louis, do hereby proclaim March 25th, 2008, Nassau Day in the City of St. Louis.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I would also like to extend greeting from the County Executive, Charlie Dooley. He's disappointed that he couldn't be here and wishes you all well in this momentous occasion. And I would like to present the proclamation and read it. Whereas the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, NASA, was established in 1958 in response to the Soviet Union's launch of the first artificial satellite the previous year. And whereas on July 20th, 1969, Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin were the first of 12 men to walk on the moon, and Armstrong's famous words, "One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind," were spoken during this momentous event. And whereas for the last 50 years, thousands of people have been working around the world and off of it to learn about the dynamics of outer space through space exploration, scientific discovery, and aeronautics research. And whereas the County of St. Louis congratulates NASA and extends best wishes for continued success. Now, therefore, I, Charlie A. Dooley, County Executive of St. Louis County, Missouri, do hereby proclaim Tuesday, March 25th, 2008 as NASA Day. If I could just add one personal note, this indeed was a great honor for me because this year my son, who is studying at the University of Arizona, was awarded a NASA internship. So I think he's one of your part-time employees.
And at this point, I would like to present to the offices of the mayor and also the office of the county executive montages that have been prepared by NASA. They include a flag of Missouri that was flown on our space shuttle mission in February of this year, and also a view of St. Louis from the International Space Station.
I think I can see my house in that picture. That's spectacular. Thank you so much. Thank you, Jim. Thank you. Thank you to both the mayor and the county executive. They are great supporters of education, of science education, and of the Science Center. We appreciate it from both of them. And now to our program. We are very honored to have today with us the Deputy Director of NASA, Shanna Dale. Before coming to NASA, she was the Deputy Director for Homeland and National Security for the Office of Science and Technology Policy. Shanna co-chaired the National Science and Technology Council's Committee on Homeland and National Security and supervised the work of the subcommittees. She previously served as Chief Staff and General Counsel at the Office of Science and Technology Policy. She served as the Assistant Vice Chancellor for Federal Relations at the University of Texas System and the Federal Relations Officer in Washington and has 10-plus years of service on Capitol Hill. Shanna served on the Board of Directors of Women in Aerospace, an organization I was proud to be a member of when I lived in Washington, one of the most influential policy groups in Washington, D.C. She was the Republican Assistant Legislative Director and Counsel on the Space Subcommittee, was appointed to the Committee on Science, Space, and Technology in 1991 as the Republican Counsel on the Subcommittee on Science. She has served on the House Public Works and Transportation Committee. Shanna received her bachelor's with honors in Management Information Systems from the University of Tulsa and her law degree from California Western School of Law. She is a member of the bars of California and the District of Columbia and is admitted to practice before the United States Supreme Court. So without further ado, it's really an honor to introduce NASA Deputy Administrator Shanna Dale.
Thank you, Doug, and thank all of you for being here today. It's truly an honor for NASA to be in the great city of St. Louis and in the show-me state of Missouri, truly the gateway to the West. I would especially like to thank Doug and his staff here at the St. Louis Science Center for being such wonderful hosts for this event. I would also like to extend NASA's appreciation to our sponsors, Boeing and Raytheon, and to our key partners, who include Washington University, Raytheon, the National Institute of Aerospace, the Missouri Space Grant Consortium, Innovate St. Louis, Information Technology Coalition, the Missouri Venture Forum, the Missouri Chamber of Commerce and Industry, St. Louis Regional Chamber and Growth Association, the Ferguson-Florissant School District, the Cooperating School District, and Ansari X Prize Foundation. Participating in our nation's space program has allowed me to fulfill a lifelong dream. I think all of us at NASA are attracted to the space program by the same things that keep the American people excited about what we do. The excitement of discovery, that irresistible human impulse to explore beyond our horizon, the feeling of being something that is bigger and greater than ourselves. Ultimately, I believe that is what motivates this next great era of discovery. This year, we're celebrating NASA's 50th anniversary, and for the last 5 decades, we have made amazing achievements in space. We've seen complete hurricanes for the first time. We've stepped onto the surface of the moon, and we have seen to the far reaches of the universe. We've discovered evidence of dark matter and dark energy, and we realize that all we can see is a tiny fraction of what is actually out there. There is another side of NASA, however, a critical part of our story which does not receive as many accolades or as much attention that is given to our exciting missions and discoveries. This is what we call the space economy, the very tangible ways and pervasive ways in which the exploration of space affects our daily lives here on Earth. The space economy is the full range of activities that provide value to human beings in the course of exploring, understanding, and utilizing space. Space is so pervasive in our lives. It is invisible yet critical to so many aspects of our daily activities and well-being. In fact, the space economy impacts just about every aspect of how we live, work, and play, from weather and climate monitoring to space-based security applications that keep us safe. When we pay for gas at the pump, or withdraw cash from an ATM, or listen to satellite radio, we're experiencing the benefits of the space economy. Space exploration has created new markets and new technologies that have powered our economy and changed our lives in many ways. According to a 2007 U.S. Space Foundation report, the space economy generated over $220 billion worldwide in total revenue, up nearly 20% from the year before, a phenomenal rate of growth. So what does all of this have to do with NASA? Our mission is not to create commercial products or to stimulate the economy, although our work often has those effects. Our focus is not on health care or medical research for the general public, yet we have made significant contributions in those areas. We are not the nation's environmental agency, yet we provide critical information that advances our understanding of Earth. The simple answer is that exploration of space demands that we push the limits of knowledge, technology, and precision in ways that could not have been originally imagined, and the benefits go far beyond our space exploration mission. NASA's contributions to the space economy are through three principal topics: inspiration, innovation, and discovery. And I will be going into those in just a little bit more detail. Inspiration. Let's face it, it all starts with education. And that's because space exploration is so exciting and so cool. Space exploration inspires kids to go into science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Generations of students have been inspired to pursue these studies for a glimpse into the mysteries of our universe. Over the last 50 years, many of those students have gone on to power every form of innovation, from developing the computer chip to mapping the human genome. Maintaining our nation's leadership in the global economy requires that we encourage more students to focus on these fields. Using the inspirational pursuit of space exploration to spark the imagination of our youth is critical to keeping this nation competitive and creating a scientifically literate populace. The example of youth who dream big and achieve great things is also essential to your economy right here in St. Louis. Success in space starts in the classroom. That's why we're investing significant resources in education. For example, at Washington University here in St. Louis, we have funded research to help us remotely measure the mineralogy and characterize the rock formations on Mars, as well as to assist environmental scientists to better understand how particulates affect air quality. As you may know, the St. Louis Science Center is one of the largest and most respected science centers in the nation, providing groundbreaking, award-winning education programs tailored to support national and statewide science curricula and standards. For NASA, for the nation, and for communities such as St. Louis, inspiring students to pursue science, technology, engineering, and math fields, as the St. Louis Science Center does, is critical to economic growth and global competitiveness. I look forward to a solid discussion today on how to best build the next generation of innovators and scientists. That leads me to innovation. NASA drives innovation. Since our mission demands putting humans and robots into harsh, extreme environments, we must push the very limits of technology. This is often where we realize the greatest innovations. In October 2007, the Space Shuttle Discovery was docked with the International Space Station, and while unfurling one solar array, a tear occurred. Engineers on the ground had to assess, just as they did during the days of Apollo 13, what material was on board to accomplish this critical repair. The repair was essential to stabilize the array and to allow us to fully deploy it. The solution, using aluminum strips, tape, and cord to create cufflinks, was a real testament to innovation and ingenuity. It was also a challenge because the array was live, with no way to turn off the power. To avoid electrocution, the tools to make the repair were wrapped with non-conducting tape, and the solar array was successfully repaired during a 7-hour spacewalk by astronaut Scott Parazynski, an amazing example of NASA ingenuity. But there are less visible achievements as well, like creating the key technological breakthroughs that fuel economies and keep our nation competitive. Many of you have heard of NASA spinoffs, specific technologies that the agency has developed for our own space missions that are then taken by the private sector and refined or transformed for commercial use. There are over 1,500 documented NASA-derived technologies. For instance, early semiconductor companies were challenged by the Apollo program to develop integrated circuits that met stringent quality and performance requirements. In addition, they had to be smaller and more powerful than ever before. That straightforward technical requirement was catalytic. It started a cascade of developments leading to countless new products and entirely new markets. Some of those space-derived technological benefits hit close to home right here in Missouri. One example has been a life-saving innovation in space and here on Earth. Monsanto, a Missouri-based company, developed a chemically treated fabric called Durette, which will not burn or produce noxious fumes. Such fabric is critical in the oxygen-rich, pressurized environment in a spacecraft. This non-flammable fabric was selected as a material for Apollo astronaut garments and was also used in the Skylab and shuttle programs. Such fire-resistant suits are critical for astronaut safety. The fibers and fabrics have evolved and have been modified over the years, making them lighter in weight and expanding their uses for non-space-related activities to those such as firefighting. The suits protect our firefighters as they put their lives on the line to protect us. They are also used by drivers, refuelers, and crew chiefs in the auto racing industry. NASA-derived technologies are also making a difference here and abroad. For instance, a robot that was created for Mars exploration has been further developed into a tactical reconnaissance robot. These robots are saving the lives of our servicemen and women. Our U.S. troops in Afghanistan and Iraq are using these robots to clear caves and bunkers, to cross minefields, and deal with the dangers of improvised explosive devices. According to iRobot, the company that makes them, soldiers have even given their robots nicknames. The Washington Post has reported that the robots' military keepers have become so attached that they have even awarded the robots unofficial Purple Hearts and battlefield promotions. NASA-derived technologies are also improving the conditions of people in the developing world. Water recycling and filtration systems engineered to sustain astronauts living on board the International Space Station, have been adapted to safe, affordable drinking water, provided this technology in poor, remote regions of the world. These are only a few examples of what NASA's technologies mean for all of us here on Earth. These advances also benefit St. Louis and the state of Missouri in direct ways. Over the past 5 fiscal years, NASA has invested over $83 million in the state of Missouri. NASA's investments driving these innovations are happening on a budget with a funding level that is 0.6% of the federal budget. With this budget, we are, among other things, engaged in, 1, embarking on the human journey back to the moon for a mission that is vastly different from the days of Apollo. About 12 years from now, we'll have people living on the moon, and we will learn from this valuable experience the skills that are needed that will enable us to take the next steps to go to Mars and beyond. 2, observing our Earth from the unique vantage point of space, which is essential for climate change research, disaster response, and mitigation. 3, conducting fundamental research into aeronautics that will lead to quieter, safer, and more efficient airplanes. 4, expanding our knowledge about the universe and our place in it through projects like the Hubble Space Telescope. 5, leading the largest international cooperative endeavor in the history of science and technology, the International Space Station. And 6, engaging the commercial aerospace industry in an exciting initiative to facilitate U.S. private industry development of reliable, cost-effective access to low Earth orbit. Through these efforts, NASA is helping our high-tech industries, a major force in U.S. economic growth, to stay on the cutting edge of competitiveness. From innovation, NASA opens the door to new discoveries. NASA's pursuit of discovery pushes the extremes of science to answer fundamental questions, to achieve a greater understanding of the universe, and to determine what is happening to the Earth's climate and why. We have discovered a great deal through NASA's research into lightweight composites, cleaner and quieter aircraft, engine technologies, and advanced air traffic management tools. These are all making air travel safer, more efficient, and more environmentally friendly. The discoveries from our aeronautics research program have contributed to innovations like winglets. Winglets are the vertical extensions of wingtips that improve an aircraft's fuel efficiency, cruising range, as well as the space required at the airport. They're being used around the world on all types of aircraft. A more recent NASA industry research collaboration has resulted in a new engine nozzle design which reduces engine noise. In space exploration, we are in an exciting new age of discovery, going to the moon, Mars, and beyond. In cooperation with our international partners, we'll construct an outpost there, a sustained human presence on the moon. Let me emphasize those words, sustained human presence. NASA is pursuing discoveries that will enable us to accomplish this endeavor. Outposts on the moon, as well as travel to Mars, will require lighter materials, manufacturing techniques with little waste or pollution, and even better methods of recycling and reuse, contributing to the development of sustainable systems right here on our own world. Inspiration, innovation, and discovery. Each is interdependent, and through a circle of renewal, they combine to create a formula for future growth, prosperity, and an improved quality of life. This symbiotic relationship forms the essence of the space economy, and it is through inspiration, innovation, and discovery that NASA makes its most fundamental contributions to life here on Earth. Space exploration is about imagining the future. It's about taking new steps, exploring beyond our limitations, creating something that is bigger and greater than ourselves. Along the way, there are countless benefits, invaluable discoveries, and technologies that are born through the trials of exploration that enhance our lives here on Earth. That's been true for NASA's first 50 years, and I have no doubt that it will be true for the next 5 decades. Quests of discovery are as old as humanity itself. We go to see what is beyond the horizon, to test ourselves against the unknown, to face our fears and overcome the challenges, using all of our ingenuity and determination. We will continue our quest for new discoveries through the James Webb Space Telescope, which will find the first galaxies that formed in the early universe, connecting the Big Bang to our own Milky Way galaxy. We will pursue our aeronautics research program to make our air transportation cleaner, safer, and more efficient. We will establish a sustained human presence on the moon, place the first footprints on Mars, and then go even further. I look forward to a morning of discussion about the future, a future brightened by the prospect of a growing space economy and continued space exploration, and all the promise that that holds for the people of St. Louis, for our nation, and for our world. And I do have to apologize in advance. I am going to have to duck out for a couple of minutes to deal with a couple of issues that are arising back at headquarters, but I will be back with you a little bit later. At this point, I would like to introduce a video, and this really is trying to convey in a short visual format what we're intending
NASA
on
Exploration.
doing.
For 50 years, we have powered inspiration, innovation, and discovery that shaped and improved our lives. From 1968 to 1972, we sent 24 astronauts on 9 trips to the moon, with 12 astronauts setting foot on the lunar surface. After focusing on learning to live and work in low Earth orbit, we are now ready to return to the moon, learning to live and work on another world, and preparing ourselves for the next step out into our solar system. We stand today on the cusp of a new era of exploration. Our toehold for long-duration flight, the International Space Station, is nearly as large as a football field and flies in an orbit about 220 nautical miles above the Earth once every 91 minutes, traveling at 17,500 miles per hour. Since November 2000, we've had a continuous human presence aboard the station, learning to live and work in space. Brighter than any star, it can be seen traveling overhead on any given night. Now we are ready to take the next steps into the future. We are returning to the moon. A new generation of spacecraft will take us back to our nearest neighbor by 2020. We will learn to make the 3-day voyage with new capabilities, to establish a human outpost, and to deal with the challenges we'll face when we travel beyond. The value to science will be substantial. In addition, there may be valuable natural resources at the moon's poles to be used in our quest for discovery. And what of Mars and the possibility of life on the red planet? Did liquid water exist on the surface of Mars at some time in the past? If so, how did water flow across the surface of Mars? Was the Martian environment at that time able to sustain life? And did you know that a trip to Mars will take about a half year each way, rather than a 3-day trip to the moon? Will it be your grandchildren, your children, or you to take that first step? At NASA, we will continue to reach out beyond our solar system, to search for life, to search for answers to questions about our origins and our destiny. Because at NASA, exploration powers inspiration, innovation, and discovery.